After a draft class headlined by the great Victor Wembanyama, which seemed to get sports fans across the world involved in NBA draft conversations, the drop-off in hype has become obvious in 2024. To address the title, I don't think this is nearly the worst class ever, as there's untapped potential all across the board, so I'm going to give you guys a mock draft. Let's get right into it. Just to clear the air before we get into it, the order of picks is based on the NBA standings as of December 4th. The standings won't look like this come the end of the year, so some teams that might be picking later when the actual draft roll around might get some earlier picks, so stay tuned for that. So at number 1, let's roll with the Detroit Pistons. I have them taking Alex Sarr out of the NBL. Just 1 year after we saw French big man phenom Victor Wembanyama create waves across the league, I have another French big man going number 1 this year with Alex Sarr. Sarr is no Wembanyama, but he's 7'1" with an incredibly fluid game, and like Vic, he looks comfortable with the ball in his hands anywhere on the court. Sarr has a great face-up game on the low block, and his mid-range game opens up a lot of space for him to get downhill and use his size-speed combo to his advantage. He's not the true number 1 of this class, because that's still up in the air, but he combines proven excellence with mysterious upside, so he'll be hard to pass up. At number 2, the Spurs are on the board, and I have them taking Isaiah Collier out of USC. Isaiah Collier was a highly touted prospect going into Southern California, and in his early time, it's easy to guess why. Collier knows how to orchestrate the offense and plays with this level of aggression you rarely see from a freshman. Last season, we saw a guy like Scoot Henderson garner comparisons to Ja Morant, but I see much more of that with Isaiah Collier, who has the shooting touch to complement his downhill style. Not to mention, Collier has shown to be a willing defender so far in his early career. At number 3, the Washington Wizards are on the board, and I have them grabbing Ron Holland from the G League. Ron Holland has shown throughout his high school career and in his time in the G League that he's one of the most well-rounded young stars in basketball right now. The small forward doesn't possess elite handles or lights-out shooting, but he's above average in those factors and elite at running in the transition and earning those tough buckets in a set offense. Holland is probably one of the safest picks in the class this year. Think of him as a slightly more raw version of Scotty Barnes. At number 4, I have the Memphis Grizzlies taking Matas Buzelis, also out of the Ignite. If Memphis continues to struggle once Ja Morant returns, and they end up with an early lottery pick like they do here, Matas Buzelis is the perfect fit. Matas is a 3-level scorer whose 6'10 frame allows him to provide constant pressure when his opponent has the ball. He moves best on offense without the ball in his hands, which I think will be a great benefit if he joins a team with elite guard play like the Grizzlies do. He's a bit of a tweener, not really a true wing or a true big, but in the right fit, Matas has that superstar potential. At number 5, I have the Portland Trail Blazers picking up Justin Edwards, the small forward from Kentucky. Edwards is lower on some boards, but the lefty forward out of Kentucky is just too smooth of a scorer to make me think he won't end up being a high-end first rounder. It's not often you get a natural playmaker and elite scorer off the dribble at such a large frame. And with spots to fill in at the forward position and scoring desperately needed, I think Portland would pull the trigger on Justin Edwards at 5. At number 6, I have the Charlotte Hornets taking Zachary Richausset out of France. With the Hornets needing to clear house at forward to anyone really not named Brandon Miller, I think bringing in a guy like Richausset, who demands defensive attention, would be helpful to develop what you already have in stone. Richausset reminds me a lot of a guy like Michael Porter Jr. He does need his shots to be effective, but there doesn't seem like there's a shot on the court that he can't hit. The Hornets just need overall talent, and I think he might be the best one on the board. At number 7, the Bulls take a guy I really like with Stephon Castle. Stephon Castle is a very interesting guard talent who could easily rise up the draft boards, assuming UConn continues to play well. Castle reminds me a lot of a guy we saw in the draft a couple years ago, Moses Moody. And although Moody hasn't fully panned out to his potential in the league, I understand. I'll always value a guard who can get downhill, hit contested shots in the lane, and has the athleticism to crash the boards and also push in transition. And that's easily something that the Bulls could use right now, especially with Ball struggling with injuries and we don't know what his future looks like. Chicago hasn't seen that sort of talent in the last decade, and I truly think Castle could be the guy to spark that plug. At number 8, the Utah Jazz take Jacoby Walter out of Baylor. 1 year after grabbing Keontae George in the first round, I think Utah goes back to Baylor and grabs Jacoby Walter. I'm a huge fan of Walter's game, and despite him falling to 8, he's another guy that could be in that number 1 overall pick contention as we go forward, but there's a lot of time left. I like his game for a lot of the same reasons I like Grady Dick last year. He has a smooth shooting form, he's athletic, and he shows great effort on defense, which I think NBA teams will love. Walter just has to flash more consistency, and I think any NBA team would be all over him. At number 9, Portland is back on the clock, and I have him taking Donovan Clingan out of UConn. I gave the Trailblazers Justin Edwards earlier, so let's grab them a big man for the future with Clingan still on the board. He reminds me a lot of how we might see a young star like Cooper Flagg develop in the future. He has so much height and reach that he can block almost any shot down low, but he's still agile enough to be a threat at that three-point line. Clingan will have a lot of work on becoming a threat with the ball in his hands, but it'll be hard to pass up on his defensive potential and overall size if you're the Trailblazers. At number 10, a guy that's all over the place on people's boards, I have Cody Williams out of Colorado going to the Spurs. He is the younger brother of the Thunder's Jalen Williams, referring to J-Dub. Cody plays the game a much different way though. He's much lankier than J-Dub, but still plays that signature smooth style that J-Dub has. While his brother may be more of a deep threat, Cody Williams uses his frame to make plays in the lane. He's on the skinnier side, so I feel more confident playing him away from the rim for the most part, but if he can put on some more muscle, it's hard to deny that he'll be one of the best players here, because he'll be able to show that down-low versatility. At number 11, the OKC Thunder are up, and I have him taking Ryan Dunn, the small forward out of Virginia. OKC is much more known for taking project players who usually take a lot of time to develop, but with them being a lot better recently, I think they're better off going for a more solidified contributor in this draft class. Dunn has room to grow as a shooter, but he's great at utilizing off-ball screens to get open, and he might be the best defender in this whole class. The Thunder could use another NBA-ready wing in their rotation, and I think Dunn could be just that. At number 12, the Atlanta Hawks are on the board, and I have him taking the tall point guard out of Mega Basket, Nikola Topic. Trae Young can still be your guy, but if he's someone that ends up in trade talks like I expect he might, you do need to go a different direction with your point guard position. Unlike Trae Young, Topic is a big point guard who is much more fundamentally oriented. He also provides a lot of slashing opportunities that Trae really hasn't been able to do. I want to see Topic develop his passing skills. He's not even close to an NBA level playmaker right now, but with this lottery selection and him having such a high frame and great fundamentals, I think a team is going to take a shot on him anyways, and I think that would be the Hawks here at 12. At number 13, the OKC Thunder are back on the clock, and I think they take the elite shooter out of Kentucky, Reed Sheppard. After choosing a guy like Ryan Dunn at 11, OKC grabs another shooter for their backcourt with Reed Sheppard. At 6'3", Sheppard might be point guard sized, but he can play more of a shooting guard role in the NBA due to his incredible efficiency and his ability to defend much bigger than he really is. Sheppard needs to focus on getting to the line more, because if he does, he's going to be a menace in the league, and that's the only aspect he's missing. At number 14, the Houston Rockets are on the clock, and there's a guy that's been hanging around that I think would be the perfect fit, and that would be Tyrese Proctor, the point guard out of Duke. I know, Proctor has had a rough start to his 2023 season, but his playmaking ability has been shown despite his struggles getting his shots off. There's something to be said about grabbing a solidified point guard who is a consistent playmaker on a team with a lot of streaky guards who don't necessarily do a lot in that area. And coming in behind Fred VanVleet, I think Proctor could develop into a star point guard one day. At number 15, the New Orleans Pelicans are on the clock. They were a team that might have wanted Tyrese Proctor, but I think they get the next best thing with Rob Dillingham out of Kentucky. Rob Dillingham made a choice to head to Kentucky this offseason, knowing he would probably come off the bench, but that hasn't slowed him down one bit. People will be worried about his small frame, but he's shown that he's one of the most unique creators with the ball in his hands in all of college basketball. He would be my first choice. Not to mention his elite shooting from deep. He has really played himself into a lottery position this year, and that's where I see Rob going at 15 to New Orleans. At number 16, the Miami Heat roll with the big man out of UCLA, Ade Mara. The Heat love to take draft-ready talent who are ready to compete right away. But assuming they're on the downturn of their success, I think it's fair to chase after a project player for once. Ademara's stats are nothing to get excited about, but he'll only be 19 on draft day, and his interior defensive ability, mixed with his passing ability, makes me confident playing with Bam Adebayo would bring out the best of his skill set. It's hard for me to pass on the chance to pair those two up together, and not to mention, Mara is 7'3". He has a lot of room to grow. At 17, the Cavs are on the board, and I have him rolling with the forward out of the G League, Izan Almanza. Almanza is another very young talent with a lot of room to grow, and he's showing flashes of greatness in the G League already. He kind of reminds me of a guy we saw last year come out of the G League, Leonard Miller. someone who moves well with the ball in their hands and is a willing playmaker. But like Leonard Miller, there's a lot of room for him to develop as a shooter in the NBA, but he has the fundamentals that make me confident he'll be able to figure it out. At number 18, we're in the G League once again with another forward, Tyler Smith. Just one pick after Almanza, the Suns go after the other power forward from the Ignite, Tyler Smith. Smith is much more of an offensive threat than Almanza. He's a great shooter from everywhere on the court, and you expect his jumper mechanics to translate seamlessly to the league. His defense is atrocious, though. That'll need to be something he commits to improving, but if you're a team like Phoenix, you just cannot deny the offensive potential if he joins your squad that already has so much star power. At number 19, the New York Knicks roll with the big man out of Indiana, Kel'el Ware. After a really disappointing year at Oregon, Ware is looking much more promising for the Hoosiers. The center is one of the most skilled players in this entire draft, being able to shoot from anywhere and having incredible athleticism for a 7-footer. He's not an incredible defender and overall just needs to keep his foot on the gas more often. He looks too laid back. But the Knicks will be happy adding such a skilled big man to their roster, and I think he can make an immediate impact. At number 20, the Hawks are back on the board, and after grabbing Nikola Topic, I think they go for a project guy with Bobby Quintman. As I mentioned, they grabbed Topic earlier, now it's time to pick a guy with a crazy high ceiling. Don't let his stats at Wake Forest confuse you. This guy was a stud in Sweden and is still showing off some of those same tools. If the Hawks like Jalen Johnson's ability to crash the glass and give effort on defense, which I hope they do, it's great, they'll love to see the same things from Quintman. If Capella is out, if he's in a trade package, it also won't hurt to get another defensive-oriented big on their roster. The Hawks don't have a whole lot of pressing needs, so why not take a guy that could develop into the best big on your team? At number 21, one of the most exciting young teams in basketball is on the clock, and I really like Aaron Bradshaw out of Kentucky for that squad. Unfortunately, we haven't got to see a lot of Aaron Bradshaw this season at Kentucky, but it seems like he's made a full recovery from his foot injury that was holding him back earlier this season. Outside of Miles Turner, the Pacers lack a true center on their roster, and with Turner always being in trade talks, Bradshaw might have to make an impact sooner rather than later, similar to a guy we saw this year, Derek Lively. Bradshaw is an efficient player with great shot selection down low, so you can't sleep on him. At number 22, the Pelicans grab maybe the most underrated forward in this whole class, Tejan Saloon. After grabbing Rob Dillingham earlier, the Pelicans should look to address those bench forward minutes, because realistically, Najee Marshall and Matt Ryan likely aren't the long-term answers. Saloon is a freak of nature, being an incredibly lanky 6'10 small forward whose unconventional play style allows him to get open looks on the regular. His mechanics in general need some work, but his ability to find open shots and his defensive upside have me very, very interested. At number 23, the Knicks are back on the clock, and they roll with a guy that's been making waves all over college basketball, Carlton Bub Carrington. Carlton Carrington is a name that's all over draft boards. Some sites have him top 5, and others have him hanging around in the second round. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't impressed with Carrington's production earlier this season at Pitt. And he'll still only be 18 years old come draft day. He reminds me a lot of another slim guard being Bones Hyland, and even with the permanent green light on at Pittsburgh, he's still somewhat efficient, which is a very good sign. He's got to get that defense up and prove he can play winning basketball though, because we've seen guards that play like him have trouble translating to the NBA in the past. At number 24, the Philadelphia 76ers grab another Kentucky player, DJ Wagner. DJ Wagner is one of the many Kentucky Wildcats I expect to see go in this first round, and he was someone who came into college basketball with a world of hype around him. Wagner was one of the best high school recruits last season and showcases a lot of the same things that the 76ers' Tyrese Maxey already does. He can stop on a dime, he has a great pull-up game, and I'm confident in time he'll be able to run an NBA offense. The Sixers need point guard minutes off their bench, and Wagner is the best option available by far. At number 25, I admit the Nuggets are probably sad that they missed out on DJ Wagner, but they get the next best thing available, Trey Alexander out of Creighton. Trey Alexander will finish up his third year at Creighton this year and still only be 21 years old come draft time. Trey Alexander is a super fun guard who has a wiry frame but still plays a high level of defense, something Michael Malone would love. His jumper has a strange look to it, but it's consistent, especially in the mid-range. The Nuggets have attacked forward in years past, so why not try to grab a guard who could be an instant contributor? I think Trey Alexander's their guy. At number 26, the Pacers are back on the board, and they go after a guy that we've seen the last couple of years be lights out at times. That would be Wooga Poplar. Wooga was an incredibly fun player to watch when he shared the backcourt last year with Isaiah Wong. But unlike Wong, who I did really like, Wooga is one of the most efficient shooters in the entire country and is one of the few players draft eligible that I say have unlimited range. He has good size, and if he can keep those turnovers low, he'll be taken a whole lot earlier, but he does have to clean that up. All the way at number 27, who would have thought that the Orlando Magic would be mocked this late? What a season, but I still think they find value late in the draft with Adem Bona. Adam is a prototypical center for the most part. He doesn't shoot the three ball at all. He's not necessarily the most skilled player with the ball in his hands, but he plays elite defense and he gets his shots off near the rim and he shoots them well. I think there's a lot of talent to be molded with Bona, and one thing the Magic lack as an overall is a lot of big man talent on their roster outside of Carter Jr. I think Bona could be great depth. At number 28, the Milwaukee Bucks are on the board, and I have him taking Alex Karaban out of UConn. Alex Karaban didn't get to show off his game much during UConn's national championship run last season, but this year we are seeing the best of the 6'8 shooter. Karaban can get a bucket at all three levels of the offense, and despite his three-point percentage being low, he's confident in taking those shots, and he shoots well enough from the line where I'm confident he'll bring those numbers back up. You can always use shooting, and Karaban would bring that to the Bucks immediately. At number 29, I have Boston taking a guy that you guys have probably been waiting on for a while now, Kyle Filipowski. Filipowski is an incredible college player at Duke. He checks off every box of what makes a dominating big man at the NCAA level. But I have my worries about that translating to NBA basketball. While he does a lot of things well, he doesn't really have that it factor that a lot of guys that go in the first round do. And he doesn't space the floor well enough where I think he can be a focal point on a team's offense. With that being said, his proven production would sell a contender like the Celtics to bake on him to work on their bench, and I think that would be a good guess. At number 30, the last pick in my mock, who would have thought that the Minnesota Timberwolves would be here, but with the way they've been playing, that might be the way it ends up. With that being said, I have him taking Baba Miller, the small forward out of Florida State. Now, Minnesota doesn't have one singular need, so why not take a shot on a guy with such a high ceiling? Baba Miller will get drafted at 20 years old as an excellent defender with good numbers on offense from inside and outside the arc. Miller doesn't get to the line nearly as much as he should, and shooting the free throws isn't really a great skill of his either, but at 6'11", his height can make up for a lot of his shortcomings, including that one, and I gotta say, it would at least be worth a shot from Minnesota to draft him. And that's gonna conclude the mock. I know we're a long way away. We're still just getting into the swing of things with the NBA and the NCAA season, so there's a lot that's gonna change. With that being said, there's bound to be multiple first round talents that I didn't mention in this video. If you know one, please throw them down in the comments. I love to scout these guys. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you liked your team's pick in this mock. Make sure to check out our videos going forward. We'll have a couple more mocks, and we do a whole lot of other stuff too, so we hope you stick around. Thanks for tuning in. Peace out.